I can't think of a movie that has blown my mind into as many pieces as Black Swan did. I was already totally aware that it was an amazing movie. I have seen it before and it's one of the first Blu-rays I ever bought, but I didn't expect anything as good as what I got. Every aspect of filmmaking is utilized in this movie. From a technical perspective, this is a masterpiece, and from a writing perspective, this is a masterpiece. There isn't a single part of this movie that I see as being weak or even being mediocre. It's all fantastic and absolutely riveting. Black Swan presents a story that deals with so many themes. I'm surprised at how well it weaved them all together to create a story that was not only compelling, but thought-provoking and is something that will stick with me for a few days. I have to watch another movie for review today, but I feel like I'm going to be thinking about Black Swan the whole time. The strongest theme in Black Swan is duality. This is present in essentially every part of its creation, the visuals, the characters, and the story. And while the film is overall about the lead up to the first performance of the ballet Swan Lake and how it affects the main character Nina, there is a surprising amount of similarity between the ballet story and the films. Although the film presents a much darker and more haunting version of this story. It's not really something that I noticed until the end of the film, and when I finally did, it was yet another thing about Black Swan that blew me away. The other thing about this movie that I find brilliant is the way it presents Nina's struggle against the controlled, consistent, and safe reality that her mum has sheltered her with her entire life, and the uncontrollable, inconsistent, and harsh reality of the real world. There is a whole subplot about Nina's mum living through her vicariously, and while the details seem somewhat unrealistic, it adds so much to the surreal nature of the film. It adds another layer to Nina's struggle with adapting to her role as a Swan Queen, and it ultimately seems to be what causes the central conflict of the movie. The way the ballet's idea of a fragile and pure white swan and an evil black swan manifests itself in Nina's life for the runtime of the movie is really, really well done. It legitimizes and brings to life Nina's internal conflict in a way that few other things could, and it's super engaging to watch. Watching Nina's world fall apart literally and figuratively really gets under your skin, and it's the smaller details of what's happening that make the film really uneasy pretty much from the opening scene. The characters are also a large part of this unease. All of them are performed incredibly well, and each have their own ways of getting on Nina's nerves in different ways. The duality of her ballet performance is less of a focus for the plot and more of a reflection of how she feels as a person. The white swan being the person she was raised as, and the black swan being what everyone else expects her to be. Nina's frigidness and incredibly narrow and sheltered perspective of adult life is something that makes it even more difficult for her to deal with how far the performance takes her out of her comfort zone. Nina's frigidness and incredibly narrow and sheltered perspective of adult life is something that makes it more difficult for her to deal with how far the performance takes her out of her comfort zone. One thing I really love is how much the characters individually contribute to the progress of this and the plot. It makes everything feel very natural. The story of Black Swan progresses a little bit further with each interaction Nina has with one of the main characters, and you can see small changes in her person, or at least see some impact on her after each interaction, and it was really interesting to see this. The other thing about Nina's character arc is how it affects her dancing. I don't know very much about dancing in terms of technique, but I could see actual, tangible differences in choreography throughout the film. The film describes the black and white swans as having very distinct styles of dancing, and seeing them slowly come to fruition in Nina's practices and seeing them balanced against someone like Lily's performances is really cool because it emphasizes the differences in performance that may not be as noticeable to someone who doesn't dance. The surreal nature of Black Swan and the contrast between reality and the things that are slightly beyond this boundary is created through some filmmaking mastery. There are so many things about the way this film is crafted that create a sense of unease and of things being slightly off-center. For starters, Black Swan's use of mirrors is brilliant. While sometimes it's obvious that the person you're seeing is the reflection, there are times where it's legitimately hard to tell, and both of these images are used to great effect. Whether it be splitting a character's reflection between two mirrors that join at a beveled edge, or simply an infinite repeat of a character between two opposing mirrors, the work with the cinematography throughout is gorgeous and expertly done. Added to this is a sense of being an observer to the whole thing. Passing so many mirrors and looking them head on, you would expect to see a camera, but after so much exposure to reflections with no image of a camera, it makes Black Swan even more immersive. I'd say part of the reason this is achieved so well is the way the film is edited. It's one of the most subtly edited films I've ever seen, and when it does make a noticeable cut, it's for a specific effect which is impactful every single time. It also uses musical cues really well in certain scenes, and overall the music is just used brilliantly. Whether it be the increasingly sinister use of classical ballet music or the dark, synthesized, and heavily produced tracks, Black Swan uses all its music in exactly the right spots, and its use of synthetic organs, or at least what I think are organs, emphasizes the sinister nature of the classical tracks towards the end of the film as reality becomes looser and looser. So basically, Black Swan is incredible, fantastic, amazing, brilliant, mind-blowing.
And what's the Swan track? It doesn't matter. Black Swan, no, just kidding. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.